Let me pause you there. I mean, I agree with you that we need to have more of a sense of commitment to the common good. And but one of the, I think, profound points you make in the book is that it's sort of stunning that the utter PR failure of journalists in making the case for our own essential civic role and communicating that to the public in a way that they can understand, while distrust in the media is sown by politicians with phrases like enemy of the people and the combination
kill the media, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't want to over-index the people who shout that, but yeah. But it's evidence of declining trust in institutions, particularly the media. So given that it's a PR fail by people whose job it is to tell people what's happening, and that as journalists, we believe that there is such a thing as facts, even if objective truth, maybe, in a philosophical realm, we're not swimming in a sea of relativism. So what is your suggestion on how we can play offense in the PR battle? And then we can get to a structural solution. You mentioned the Salt Lake Tribune, but let's start with just what we should do to play offense to win this PR battle that we've lost today.
Well, I mean, even going out to talk to high school classes, going out to talk to college classes, to engage. You see some signs that the New York Times is beginning to do this. They're page 2, they talk about how do we gather the news? Who are the people involved in gathering it? What are their values? Where do they go? How much money do they spend? I mean, most average Americans have no idea what we as journalists do, that we go all over the world. We put our butts on the line in many cases. We create these complex institutions where we have layers of editing, layers of, in your world of video, we have bookers, producers, analysts. So there's a process involved and a thought process involved how we create news. News is not just an 18-year-old farting in public, in effect, excuse my French, but you just don't bloviate by yourself in public and call that news. You have as institutions, we have processes, we put out corrections, we cross-check each other, we have values. And so Mark Zuckerberg said the other day that well, we don't really want private sector companies dictating what truth is in our society, do we? Well, that's what every media organization in the private sector does. We absorb information from all over the world and different beats, different technologies, human rights and civil rights, and we try to create a fabric. We try to create a meaningful middle ground where we could present this to the American people. And so we need to explain that. And so for some reason, we assumed that the American people understood that. We assumed that the American people understood that we do this not to get rich. We're certainly not getting rich at this. We're doing it out of a sense of responsibility. And so that's the message I think we need to communicate more broadly and more passionately through every channel we have.
You mentioned the Mark Zuckerberg anecdote, and I thought it was actually a profound sort of rejoinder. Just briefly, because it's in the news again. What's your feeling about Section 230? Well,
this is incredibly important. And for those of the uninitiated, it basically says to all the social media platforms, you cannot be sued for anything that goes on your platform. So, so what that means is that the social media platforms have the right to put the most outrageous, inflammatory, extremist stuff on their platforms without vetting it, without checking it, in fact, exacerbating it, in fact, inflaming it with the algorithms that direct it to the most marginalized and sympathetic audiences. So I don't think you can completely get rid of Section 230, but I do think it needs to be amended to imply, to suggest that there are some sort of limits on the garbage, frankly, the garbage that the social media platforms are throwing out. There needs to be guardrails of some sort on social media platforms. There need to be certain areas where the monitors, I mean, Mark Zuckerberg talks about how he's hired 30,000 monitors, but all the reporting suggests that they can't really monitor, that they're not really allowed to do their jobs. They're just there for PR, right? For Zuckerberg's PR purposes. So there need to be at least some sectors that are moderated. Maybe some of the traffic in the most sensitive sectors can be delayed 3 or 4 minutes. Imagine delaying it 3 or 4 minutes to allow monitoring systems to take effect. Would that end the world? Would that be the end of the world? No. So there needs to be discipline imposed on these social media platforms, and Section 230 is one tool that I think could be amended, not gotten rid of, but amended in a responsible way that would move the social media giants in the direction of taking responsibility for the content that they disseminate.
That's mend it, not end it. I like that.